Yes, me, just like everyone else. I have got the sourdough craze. So this is Susie's sourdough. That was my very first loaf. Maybe it was the second, can't remember. But I've spent the last couple of weeks perfecting my sourdough creations. Okay, so I'm going to get started on a different recipe today. I've been trying lots of different ways of making just sourdough bread, as in just plain, simple bread. Some have been really successful and some have been not at all successful. And then I did try and make some dinner rolls last night or yesterday, day before, I don't remember, but they were not successful either. So it's a bit hit and miss. The actual starter itself is incredibly successful. I'm really happy with that. It rises, it certainly is very active within about 3 or 4 hours after it's been fed, and I've gone to feeding it every 12 hours now, just while I'm playing and trying out new recipes. Right now, I'm going to try a recipe. I was trying to do a recipe that was just on what we had in the cupboard, because my wonderful Dave is away for the day, and to be perfectly honest with you, he's taken his credit card or his card for shopping with him, and mine got hacked the other day, so I'm still waiting for my new one to arrive. So hopefully by the time you see this, I will have been able to go shopping again. Anyone who knows me knows I like shopping. So what I'm making at the moment, it's from an all recipes submitted by Janice. So whoever Janice is, thank you. I'm going to give it a go. It is going to be using Kenny in the background there, the Kenbush, and it is actually a flavoured bread, I guess. So it's specifically identifies as being a cranberry and pecan bread. I don't like pecans. I can't chew very well at the best of times, and I love walnuts, and there's always walnuts in my house. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I love them. That's why they're always in my house. But outside of that, I remember when I was pregnant with our son, Oliver, walnuts were the only thing that took away the morning sickness. That and fat, greasy sausages. I'm sure that he knew I hated them. So I'm substituting for the pecans, which I can't have. So I'm substituting some crushed walnuts. I'm not going to toast them as they suggest for like an hour in the oven, because they become so hard, and I struggle with that as part of my TN. So we're going to give it a go. The recipe is actually really simple, as simple as flavoured bread can be. It does use some sourdough starter discard. It uses some nuts. I don't think you could go wrong with just about any of those kind of yummy nuts. It uses all-purpose flour, or in Australia is what we call plain flour. It uses water, salt, melted butter, and some cranberries, which I'm just rehydrating in some boiling water. They're dried ones, so they're getting rehydrated. So I needed to cover them while I'm making the dough. I'm reading the recipe as I talk to you, so if I get it wrong, it's just as much on you guys as it is on me. And then I need to head over to the mixer and let it rest then for 30 minutes. What do I do for 30 minutes? I'll probably do quite a few things. So we're going to, now that those are prepared, we need to put the flour with water in a bowl, combine it enough to make a rough dough, and cover it with wrap for 30 minutes. And then after that, we're going to mix in the starter. So I need to feed the starter again now so I can get the discard out that can go in there. I think it's only about 3/4 of a cup of starter that we need. And so it's going to start with normal flour and water in the bowl, rest for 30 minutes, add the starter, salt, and mix it until it's elastic. and then knead the rest into the dough. Cover them and then cook it in about 4 hours time. Let's see what happens. Okay, so different view. Now you can see all the chaos that's going on behind me. That's life. I do actually prefer recipes, as much as I appreciate the effort that whoever Janice is that put this in. I appreciate it. I prefer recipes that don't go by the cup, that they actually go by the scales, because it is so easy to, yeah, it can be just a little bit off. So, and my Kenwood actually measures, like when you put stuff in it, it actually measures how much has gone in. It doesn't measure by the cup though, it measures by the grams, which is a bit of a pain in the bum. So I need to put in there 3 cups of flour, and there's not going to be enough flour in this big tall jar, which means that I need to fill it up. Of course I have to fill it up. Why would I not have done that before I started? Who knows? Okay, so let's try that again. This is my beautiful Kenny here. He's down here. I actually have a, what do you call it? A non-slip mat underneath him that's made kind of neoprene, and it helps to dull the sound, because I can't handle the noise of the machine going, but I like cooking and baking, so I don't really have a choice. It's either on and making a noise, and yes, I've seen the ones from Boost. I can't have one. Okay, so I've got a big cup here that's got 3 cups of what we call in Australia plain flour, because I can't be bothered going and buying bread flour. It is working just as well to make plain flour, and now I've got flour everywhere, and a cup of water. And yesterday I nearly lost the plot entirely, because this is a relatively new machine. When I say relatively new, it's been going for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Not last Christmas, Christmas before maybe. And I had finally gone through and got rid of all the other bits and pieces that we didn't need anymore. You know, you don't need 7 whisks. You don't need 12 paddles that go for the last, you know, however many mixes I've had in the last 49 years. But I couldn't find the dough hook, and I had never used it. And I could find the dough hook to the old one that I had, but it was a different brand, so it didn't work. So I was a little upset and very relieved when we found it in the pile that was going to go down to the salvos. But I hadn't yet taken it to the salvos. So I'm just going to beat this now. Sorry, knead it for just till it makes a rough dough, okay? And then I'm covering it with plastic wrap and allowing it to rest for 30 minutes. Makes sense to me. And then after that, we'll mix the sourdough starter. So I'll feed my sourdough, do a discard. Gotta love it when you don't have to do the hard work. Then drain the cranberries and knead them into the dough. That means I have to go and get all my rings taken off again. Takes a bit of effort to get those done. Very important message. Do not push dough down. Scrape the risen dough onto a lightly floured board. I thought that was common sense. Punching it means it just develops more gluten, I thought, but that's okay. So we'll see what happens, and I'll come back to you when it's time for the next bit. Okay, so apart from something happening because there was a bit of humidity and moisture on the top of the cling film, nothing too exciting happening, but we're still over here at Kenny, and it's time to put in, according to the recipe, mix in the sourdough starter and the salt. So this is my sourdough starter, which I had discarded from my Susie. I couldn't remember her name for a minute there. I've called her Susie. She is very excited and creates an awful lot of sourdough starter, I guess. So that's going, oh, I'm going to need a little thing to help me. A better thing to help me. So this is going in with the flour and the water. I would show you this, but it's really boring. It's just the inside of a bowl. I'll show you what it looks like when it's coming. So it's a bit stretchy, but I actually have I was doing some research. I have a very liquidy sourdough starter, and that's okay. I just need to make adjustments where necessary to the liquid amount that gets put in other places. So that's okay. I generally, I'll be honest, when I'm doing my normal cooking, there's an awful lot of measuring by heart. I don't do a great deal of measuring, unless it's something really finicky. I haven't found too many things like that. I think one of the problems with that though is you make a really great recipe or a really great batch of something, and then you don't remember all the measurements that you used. Maybe that's why my husband bought this thing with the scales in it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll get what he's given, and he will love it. And he does love it. So I am on the lookout for some recipes that are low GI for the obvious reason. And it is not me this time that we need that for. But Dave loves his homemade treasures and is not keen when his homemade treasures have to be limited. So just popping in some salt. We use this one, I don't know what it's called, this one that sits beside the stove every day, and I've got the tiniest teaspoon out. I pulled out the wrong one, but it's 1/4 of a teaspoon. So hence the reason the 1.25 is actually 6 of these. 5. Well, I actually measured it, so let's be grateful for that little small mercy. So we'll stick Kenny back on again. And apparently I'm going to knead this now in the mixer for 3 to 5 minutes until it's smooth and elastic. It's pretty gross right now, but that's okay. So I've come across a problem with this whole bread making, which I'm going to share with you guys. I have got jewelry that I wear all the time, and I love my jewelry. I don't believe that jewelry should be just put in a safe and left there. I do like to wear it. However, they will all come off except for my wedding band, and it's been on there a while. We've been married this year for 18 years. So we're one of those crazy people who got married on the 7th of the 7th, 2007. Just going to turn this up a little. Sounds very wet, but it's actually coming together. So that's all great. I went to speak to my jeweler, who, yes, over the years, I buy from the same jeweler. She's a lovely lady and she takes such good care of me. But she said I actually have to go to the fire brigade, down to the local fire station, and ask them to cut my wedding band off. And then they will use part of this, which is actually Dave's wedding band, which he chooses not to wear anymore, and use part of this to make mine a little bit bigger. Because I used to be really, 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 really skinny. And I'm not anymore. So I'm going to turn this off so you don't have to listen to this while I get this all to come together, and we'll see how I'll come back to you once it's all sorted. The little weighing thing also has a timer, so we can actually let it go as long as it needs to. Okay, so I've actually used Kenny. I know KitchenAids are very, very popular, but Kenny Kenwood is pretty cool too. So I've used Kenny to do all of the kneading because, well, I don't have to take it all off. It'd be great. I'm just going to actually show you what it looks like. So it said to keep going until the dough was smooth and elastic. Now, it doesn't look ideally smooth, but there's definitely some elasticity in there, and that's okay. It's a bit tacky still, but well, let's give it a go and see what happens. I'm going to put the dried cranberries and the chopped walnuts in here, and then it says to let it rise for about, well, let it sit for about 4 to 6 hours. So I'll let it sit until later on today, and we'll see what happens. For now, I'm going to put you back on your stand, which is the Ninja Creamy, and we'll get this all moving. He said a Ninja Creamy can't be useful for lots of things. Okay, so I'm just going to check it again because it just feels too soon to put this in. Drain the cranberries and knead them into the dough along with the pecans. Knead 1 or 2 more minutes and to fully incorporate them. Lightly oil a large bowl. So I do have that. I love my new bowl. Check this out. So I got this. I can't remember, it was Big W maybe. Love it. Looks like a giant milk jug. And this has become my favorite bowl for letting bread rise. And yes, it does get right to the top. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to sit it on top because I've got the oven on because it's a bit of a cool morning here today, and I find the fastest way to cool up the house is actually turn the oven on. We'll put these in. I'm just going to deal with this first. Now I have actually been really good of late in putting on an apron while I am doing any baking. But the other day I had to go to the store. So I'm putting in 3/4 of a cup of rehydrated dried cranberries. It does have a bit of moisture in it, so I'm hoping that will help with a couple of other things. And it wasn't until I was making bread, I was doing all the right things, I had an apron on, and then I made it down to the local shop to get some milk. I still had my apron, and that's not okay. And today, my son has gone off to school not feeling great. So you can imagine turning up for school wearing a food spattered apron is probably not going to make me very popular with the 13-year-old. But that's okay. 3/4 of a cup of chopped walnuts. In they go. Your view is of me. Sorry guys. And the craziness behind me. All right, let's get Kenny going, get it mixed in, and then get it resting in the bowl. Certainly. It has to be mixed till it's fully incorporated. Now, if anyone else has any sensory issues, like I do, so I can't handle the noise, it's part of my disability, I cannot handle loud noises. So the noise that's going on right now is grinding into my face, and it's not pleasant. But I'm just looking at this. There's the moisture from the cranberries is certainly more than I would have counted on, and it's struggling to incorporate them. I'm going to go fast for a second. One of the reasons, what I was saying before, one of the reasons I particularly like Kenny the Kenwood, and I know that all of these mixers come with controls to make them go slower and faster, but I find that this particular one, I have far more control over getting it as quiet as I possibly can make it, and having that neoprene underneath is very helpful. Now, it's very, very, very wet dough. Very wet. So before I actually turn this out, I'm actually going to put a little bit of extra flour in there because I don't want it to, it's all incorporated now, but it's not actually, it's too wet. Or I think it's too wet. Never made the recipe before, but apparently I can pretend I know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to put in like the tiniest amount, just see how it all comes together. Because cranberries have certainly changed the colour of the dough. It's no longer a nice sourdough colour. That was my oven timer turning off. It doesn't run unless the timer's on. It's actually got quite a little pinkish colour to it. Almost like a mushroom pink. Right, so I probably added maybe like an 1/8 of a cup of extra flour just to accommodate that additional moisture from the cranberries. An entire baking pantry right beside Kenny. All the food's been moved out somewhere else. Who needs to eat when you can bake? My thoughts anyway. Can I get you good guys to have a look in here? So, Kenny's on his way. It looks very well incorporated. It's nice colour. It's still moist, but that's okay. I would rather it be moist at this point so we don't have cracks in it. And you can see down here we've got our little timer going. Anyone does have sensory issues, this is the Kenwood Chef Excel, I think is what it's called. It does have the whole, attachments at the front, attachments at the back. I don't do any of those, so I like this mixing bit so that I can do some baking. All right, let's get it into the bowl and sort it. Okay, so now we're over here on the other side of the kitchen, and I'm going to put lightly oil a large bowl and place the dough in the bowl and turn it to coat with oil. That sounds like a plan. Not sure if you've seen one of these. People who know me know that I'm a Temu fan. This is my favorite little thing. Well, I've got lots of favorite things from Temu. And this is one of them. So it's amazing how much less oil we use in this house now that we actually spray it rather than pour it. All right, this is a very tacky texture. And I'll see how it's going midway through its rise and whether or not I need to knead in any extra dough. So very glad we found the dough hook. I think I would have cried if that had been gone. Now I know there's tools that do all these things, but this is one of my favorite things to use whenever going to get cake batter, dough, anything out of the baking pan or the, I'll get my words to work in a second, out of the mixing bowl is the rice cooker spatula thingy. It is excellent at getting everything you need. So my hands are going to have to get tacky, I think. Actually not too bad. It's not ideal, but I'm not going to panic yet because I made a dough the other day that was a bit, it was a bit moist, probably a little bit more than this, and I added more moisture, more flour, and then it was so dry. I didn't like it at all. So let's see if we can get this out and into this bowl without me turning into a loaf of dough, a ball of dough. Oh, it certainly doesn't look attractive, does it? I'm going to have so much dough in. The good thing is it's only ever eaten by my family, and they don't like cranberries and don't like walnuts. So this entire loaf is probably going to end up being taste tester for me. Now, one of the ironic things is I don't have taste buds. I know, how ripped off is that? Now I'm just going to coat this in the oil, and as soon as the oil has hit it, it's actually formed back into a proper dough, almost like a stretching dough. It's actually, it looks really good in here. Let me just see if I can turn it to show you. It's actually starting to roll into the dough rather than be all tacky and loose. So I can prove it. It's now into a big ball of dough. So I'm going to now, according to this, cover with a light cloth and let rise in a warm place until it's doubled in volume. So, yeah. I'm going to wash my hands first, and I'll tell you the story of why I don't have taste buds. Okay, so I'm back. So I actually have some cheesecloth that I use to cover this over. I do find the weather here, where we live in Canberra, to be a little bit too fluctuating. So we can have a very, very, very cold morning. This morning it was around 5 degrees. But it's getting up to 30 by the time this is finished rising. So it's really hard to get the inside of the house to maintain any form of consistency. And our kitchen does not have any windows, which sounds really weird. But our dining room is right behind where you guys are. And there's a giant sliding door there. So it's not like we don't have air. It's just a bit of a weird layout and a weird setup. So we don't get a lot of warmth baked into the kitchen. That's why I turn the oven on whenever I want it to be warm. So I'm going to put my bowl, my new favourite bowl, with the cranberry and walnut. I might actually give it a little squirt with more oil on the top, and then let it rise for the next 4 to 6 hours, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it doubles in volume. Okay, so while I'm cleaning up my mess, because it's one thing I hate about baking, it's anything I hate about baking, and normally the rule is if I bake the treasures for the whole family, then they have to do the cleanup for me. So the reason being that I don't get to enjoy them. I've got a memory of what things taste like, and I've got a memory of what things, well, I can still have a sense of smell, but I do not have a sense of taste anymore. I don't have any taste buds, which is a bit of pain. So aside from my disability, in 2022, when I was working on a away trip, I got up in the morning, as you do when you're on a trip. You get up and you do extra work, and you work into the evening because that's just what you do. And I went to plug my laptop in, and I just started with the power cord. I hadn't even set my laptop up, wasn't plugged in at the laptop end, and unfortunately there had been a lot of rain in that region that year, and the kind of Mediterranean mud kind of concrete wall had moved 1 millimetre, and it created a slip behind the electrical circuit, which created an electrical shock for Julie. So it did take a little while to get back into the swing of things. My memory is probably one of the things that is most frustrating, because I used to rely on my memory for everything, and now I can't rely on it as well. I do have to make crazy notes or print out recipes because I will not be able to remember them. So I've lost my memory, my short-term memory, and my taste buds, and a bit of my mobility and fine motor skills. So my fingers don't work as well as I would like them to. But that's part of life at the moment. So I could have been a lot worse. I could have not been here anymore. So to have survived that was certainly far more important than losing taste buds. But I do think it's very ripped off that I don't have taste buds anymore. It's very unfair. It's very unkind. And now seeing all the oil and spatters of dough on my shirt, I think I should have put my apron on. I'll come back and show you what it looks like when it's doubled in size. Fingers crossed. Take care. Okay, so I'm back. Change of clothes, because I've been out on a bit of a very unique adventure, down to the fire station to have them cut off my wedding bands. Look at that. It's been on for nearly 18 years, and no, we're still married. It was just getting a little too tight with the medication I take. So next step, I've got a floured mat here, and I have a tray. Now it's saying it wants to let it rise again once I pull this out, but it's actually more than doubled in size. It looks good. It's actually developing a bit of a hard crust. So before it gets yuck, I'm going to put it in the oven now. So I'm going to get it out of the beautiful bowl. Magic bowl. Veil. Cheesecloth that now needs to go through the wash. And check out our beautiful dough. Cranberry and walnut. Looks pretty spectacular. So I'm just going to put it off onto the board here, and then I will just give it a little bit of a knead and a stretch, and then I will try to see if I can get you at a better angle so you can actually see it. So another one of my favorite things to pull out, just very delicately pulling it out. I don't really want it to go collapsing, but gosh, it looks good. I'm gonna just get these last little dregs out of the bowl. Seriously, if you're looking for a new mixing bowl, this thing is amazing. So I think it started part of a big W, like earthware collection or something along those lines. So the let me see how much closer I can get you. Oh, that's a bit closer. Now you can't see me. Okay, so I'm just going to gently roll it into a ball. There's a bit of flour on the board, and then I'm going to put it straight into the oven because I don't actually want to, even though it's saying let it rise again for another 2 hours, I find that that second rise just doesn't do a great deal when something's already very happy. So it's saying scrape the dough, risen dough onto a lightly floured board, form a round loaf, let it rest, shape it into a round or oblong loaf, place the loaf on parchment paper, and then preheat the oven. So I'm feeling like it's quite cracky on the top, but the cracking is actually where the cranberries and walnuts are. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is, now that I might make him oblong actually, don't know why I called it a him. I've got Susie sourdough starter, but I'm going to put it straight onto this parchment paper, and then I'm going to cut the top while I'm there. So big tray. Now I buy these pieces of parchment paper. It's one of the things I love buying from Temu because I hate the sound and the noise affects me to have that tearing of the paper. So instead I buy it in the sizes that I've got, including round ones, and they just live in the pantry. Makes life so much easier. Apron on. Good decision, Julie. Okay, so I'm just going to literally score down both sides, just because it's going to have a lot of cracks anyway, being that it is so I've almost kind of made it possible for it to, the whole lid to take off. So I've got the oven preheated at 200 degrees Celsius, which is what it's needed. Please don't ask me what that means in Fahrenheit, because I don't do Fahrenheit. Come to Australia and use Celsius, it's good. I'm good with it. All right, I'm going to pop it in the oven, and then I'm going to come back to you guys when it's cooked in about, it's saying 30 to 35 minutes. See ya. So this is the finished product. I've just brushed a tablespoon of melted butter, melted healthy butter, on to the top. It hasn't risen a great deal through the cut lines that I had put in there, but sounds pretty good, and it smells amazing. So it's not an extremely massive loaf. When you think about it, I only put, I put 3 cups of flour in there, but I think the walnuts and the cranberries were have made it quite a dense bread. But I'm looking forward to cutting it. It's saying not to cut it for another hour or so. So it's going to sit here and tease me for an hour. And then I shall have a look at what's on the inside. and hopefully other people will be loving this recipe. Let's see how we go.